Hey guys, so today in class we talked some about the Articles of Confederation. We looked at them yesterday when we made our graphic organizer about them. So there are a couple of things that I want you to make sure that you are aware of about the Articles of Confederation in these notes tonight. There is a guide online, so if that makes things easier for you, go ahead and print that off. If not, then you need to make sure you've got all of this information written down in your interactive notebook. So this is, the format of this slideshow is a little bit different than some of the other ones. We're looking more at kind of a question-answer format and less of a bullet format because you looked at some notes today in class about the articles that will clarify more of the bullet type stuff. So the first thing, why did the country need its own government? And we looked at this at the beginning of this unit. We had just declared independence from Great Britain. And so we needed that established government to make things easier for us, to help us to tolerate this new form of government. The second one, what is a republic? And that's one of your vocab words for the week, and we've actually talked about it in some of our previous lessons. But a republic is a government with elected representatives. And people always get really confused, in that whole Republican-Democrat thing. And a republic does not necessarily mean that you are a Republican. Okay, two completely different words. Third, why did the Americans want elected representatives? We've already touched base on this a little bit as well. They wanted to avoid tyranny and they wanted to have a better voice in government. Remember that tyranny is that idea that your leader is taking advantage of you. They're not doing the best things that they can for you. They might be stealing your money through taxes. So we wanted to avoid all of those things that the king had done to us in the past. So next up, what did the states do once they declared independence? That very first step in this whole government is the state constitutions, those individual state constitutions. Remember that North Carolina's was in November of 1776, so it was really shortly after we declared independence from Great Britain. What was the main purpose of the Articles? To form that federal government. Now, they did not want the federal government to be very strong, which we looked at in those individual 13 articles. A lot of the powers that the federal government had were, not necessarily the greatest powers. The greatest powers were set aside for those individual state governments. Describe the components of the articles, and we've already looked through the major components, but these are the ones that I want you to make sure that you're aware of. First of all, it limited the central government. Second, it provided for a strong legislative branch or Congress. There were no presidents and no courts. So the only branch of government was this Congress. All states would have equal representation. This is a problem because you had states with higher populations and you had states with lower populations. And the states with the higher populations felt like this was not the way to go. You had to have 9 states to agree on the law, and you had 13 states to agree on the article. Remember, we only had 13 states. So these are really high percentages. Successes and weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. You have the successes. It actually gave a good plan of government. It allowed the government to negotiate treaties. It allowed the government to declare war and to make peace. It provided some new land policies, which we're going to look at in just a second. It allowed for a post office, and the post office was actually Benjamin Franklin's idea. And it provided for a way to communicate well with foreign countries. Weaknesses, could not regulate trade. So any goods that were coming in and out of the United States, the government was not allowed to regulate those or control those. Could not amend articles without those 13 states approving it. Guys, I don't think you understand probably how difficult that is to get everybody to agree on something, okay? Especially when you've got 13 states spanning all the way from Georgia up into Maine. They're going to have different interests and different ideas, okay? They could not force citizens to join the army. They could not pass laws without 9 votes. could not collect taxes. That's a big deal. The federal government did not have any form of collecting taxes. And then there was only one vote in Congress per state. And then our final slide, why were the new land policies a success under the Articles? We're going to look more closely at these, the Northwest Ordinance and the Ordinance of 1785. But essentially what they did is that they formed new territories within the United States. So we're going to start to be spreading further and further west, further south into Florida, and further north. Why would the central government have a difficult time if it couldn't regulate trade? We just talked about this. Okay, the problem with not having that ability to regulate trade is that each state had a different form of currency or a different form of money. Some of the states had what other states needed. So for example, North Carolina was a big cotton producing state, but the states in the north needed that cotton in order to manufacture their fabrics. So it was really difficult to figure out what are we going to do in order to trade that cotton from the south with the states in the north if we don't have the same kind of currency. What is a pro and con for a strong central government? And that's a plus and a delta. The plus, you've got a same currency and laws, you have good communication and better organization. A delta is that they didn't want the government to have too much power. They did not like the weak state government at all, and they felt like having that stronger central government would lead to a lot of disagreements among the states in the long run. And we're going to look at some of the different disagreements that those states had as we start talking more about the Constitution. Okay, so you can see Articles of Confederation were a good step in the right direction, but they weren't necessarily the best step in the right direction. So we ended up having a lot of government debates over these articles and their strengths and weaknesses. So we're going to look more into those weaknesses and what led us into the Constitution tomorrow, and I will see y'all then.